What's up, Giants fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. And in this video, I want to recap the Week 18 loss to the Philadelphia Eagles and the Black Monday news surrounding the New York Football Giants. Before I get into this video, folks, if you're new to the channel, make sure to check us out for all of our content on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter at bigblueavenue. We'll have a lot of 2025 off-season content. We'll also have one more live show this season happening next week with Sam and I on, I believe it'll be on either a Wednesday or a Thursday. We'll announce that on our social media platforms. But first and foremost, let's just talk about the game on Sunday. Giants losing 2013 to the Eagles, finished the season with the most losses in franchise history in their 100th season, a 3-14 record. Awful stuff. Also, the first time the Giants have ever gone winless in the NFC East since the division realignment when the Cardinals left for the West. Awful stuff. Drew Lock was not great on Sunday, threw for just 138 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Tracy was okay. Had 59 yards on 14 carries. Not an awful day for him. You know, Wan'Dale Robinson at a typical Wan'Dale Robinson stat line, 10 catches for 43 yards. It was just really awful all around. However, Malik Neighbors did make history on Sunday, setting a franchise record for most catches by a Giant in a single season. He broke Steve Smith's record when he caught 108 balls back in 2009. He also set the NFL record, later broken on in the day by Brock Bowers, for most receptions by a rookie. He passed Puka Nacua. However, Brock Bowers beats it just a couple hours later for the Las Vegas Raiders. So shout out to Malik Neighbors. However, he did play in 2 less games than Brock Bowers, and finishing the season with over 1,200 yards, 109 catches, 7 scores. Playing with 4 different quarterbacks, you couldn't ask for much more out of this rookie receiver. The defense was okay. Kayvon Thibodeau had 1.5 sacks. The Giants did only allow 51 rushing yards on the ground. They stopped the run better, but Tanner McKee did dial up the secondary, 269 yards and 2 touchdowns. Giants still have not won a game in Philadelphia since 2013. So that's pretty much it. I know they had that nice fake punt call where Dane Belton took the fake punt for a first down. I don't agree with Daboll's decision to go for it early on in the game. I think it was 4th and 7 from midfield on the first possession. But either way, that's over and done with. The season is done. The Giants will be picking number 3 overall in the 2025 NFL draft. And we'll talk about the NFL draft as we get a little bit deeper into the offseason. But the major news of this video, and why I wanted to get this out, is because today John Mara announced that both head coach Brian Daboll and general manager Joe Schoen will return in 2025 for their 4th season. And I'm sure this is causing a lot of riots amongst the fan base, but I do think this is the correct decision. I know on live shows I've advocated for firing both, but it could be worse. You could do what the Jaguars did. You could fire Doug Peterson and keep Trent Baalke, who I think is the bigger issue there. Giants, I think Joe Schoen was the bigger issue than Brian Daboll. So if you're keeping Joe Schoen, you better keep Brian Daboll. I think firing Daboll and keeping Schoen would have been the worst case scenario. This isn't the best case scenario. It's the okay scenario, if you're asking me. Fans are very mixed on this decision. Let's read the statement from John Mara before we get any further. It was posted this morning. I'll just share my screen here so y'all can see it, and we'll talk about it. Because obviously John Mara also spoke to the media earlier today. So for some reason, I'm having a little bit of an issue here. Chrome has lost permission to your screen. Great. So I'll have to fix that after the video. But the statement says, now that our season is over, we felt necessary to make this statement. Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll will continue in their respective roles with the organization, as disappointing as the results of this season have been. Steve Tisch and I remain confident in the process that Joe and Brian have implemented and their vision for our team. We look forward to the future and achieving the results we desire. This is the statement from Giants president and owner, John Mara. Don't love it, but I can see where he's coming from. Again, he's the owner. We don't have the intel, the in-house intel of the organization. They know a lot more than fans and content creators and beat reporters do. Eli Manning also came out and said that this is the right decision to keep both, that they should be rewarded the opportunity to go get their quarterback. One thing I did agree with as well, that John Mara said, is that he was asked about tanking, about beating the Colts and then the performance against the Eagles on Sunday. He said, if I had thought we were tanking either one of those games, I would have fired everybody. We are never going to do that in this organization as long as I'm standing on this side of the grass. And Kayvon Thibodeau retweeted this and then posted an exclamation point emoji on this video. And this is what I've been saying all season long. You never play to tank. This is a false narrative created by the fans to get a better draft pick. Players and coaches do not tank. Tanking will get you fired. If you want to root for your team to lose as fans, whatever, I'll never agree with it. But at the end of the day, your goal is to win football games, and you want to get the best player available in the draft. That doesn't always result in a higher draft pick, as we've seen in previous drafts, right? Look at the last two drafts. Jaden Daniels turned out to be a much better player than Caleb Williams. I know Caleb Williams set up to fail in Chicago, but you could even look at the C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young comparison, or the Aiden Hutchinson, Trayvon Walker comparison. You guys get the point. Also, Malik Neighbors, better rookie year than Marvin Harrison Jr. So that's something to consider there too. And you could also argue Drake May was better than Caleb Williams in his rookie season, despite playing in New England. So yeah, there is some truth to this, and I think it supports my argument. And players don't tank; they'll never agree with it. They're going out there to play for their jobs. It's a disservice to all the prep and work that people put in throughout the course of the week, and I think it's a slap in the face to the organization for fans to expect their team to go out there and lose on Sundays. But I will say it's a shame that there were no up top changes made by John Mara, because the organization's expectations have been tempered so much. Wellington Mara, I don't think would have ever kept these guys after 3 wins in their third year. A little bit different scenario, because year one sort of set us back a few years by going 9-7-1 and winning a playoff game, which we all loved at the time. But all in all, I would have preferred to have seen the Giants carve this up, start new, get a new GM, get a new head coach, and then you don't pressure yourself into taking this quarterback, because now in year 4, you expect all these better results. You know Joe Schoen is going to spend, I'm not going to say he's going to spend a lot, but he's going to significantly spend on players in free agency this offseason. We don't know what's going to happen with that. We obviously know how the Daniel Jones situation went down. Not a big fan of how that ended. But the thing with Joe Schoen is when you miss on draft picks, you overpay for free agents. And that's what's been happening over the past couple of seasons, right? You could argue, well, they drafted Tyler Nubin to replace Xavier McKinney. Not terrible production, less production, obviously, much less, but not a bad player, less money. Sure. You could also make the same argument as they missed on Josh Azudu, and John Runyon was paid $10 million to play that position. They missed on Evan Neal, and Jermaine Illuminor is getting paid $7 million to play that position. The point is, if he hit on these draft picks, or at least got competency from these players, he wouldn't have had to go on a spending surge this past offseason. And you also would have been able to figure out that Daniel Jones doesn't need everything perfect to be a successful quarterback. Um, that's some takeaways I have from this. Also, when the media spoke to Jalen Hyatt, he was the one player that didn't really seem very happy about Coach Daboll returning. Most players voiced their support for the return of both guys, like Slayton, even though he's an impending free agent, Wandale, Malik Neighbors, Tracy, Burns, Thomas, Runyon, Thibodeau, you name it. But Hyatt was the one, and I think it's mostly on Hyatt. It's mostly on Hyatt, and it's mostly on Schoen and Daboll too. But Hyatt needs to go out there and prove the GM and the head coach right that it was the right decision to trade up for you in the 2023 draft in that third round. Brian Daboll went ahead and orchestrated that trade. It wasn't Joe Schoen that did it. It was Daboll's idea, and it's turned out to be a complete bust. He had 8 catches this season, a step back from his awful rookie season. I didn't think it could get worse, but it did. And that's, just bad coaching, bad execution, and it's personnel. It really is personnel. And you hope a new quarterback could come in and fix this. But if there are 4 quarterbacks throwing the ball this year and Hyatt wasn't really involved with any of them, that should tell you something about Jalen Hyatt. And a lot of his answers were, "We'll see," "No idea," "Not sure," as far as his future with the team. So obviously he doesn't want to be there. But my biggest takeaway from this is John Mara has sadly lowered his expectations for the Giants organization. But I do think if you want to keep Joe Schoen, you must keep Brian Daboll. So I think he was correct in doing that. If he really wanted to keep Schoen, he had to keep Daboll too. So at least he did that. That is one positive from this, that Brian Daboll will be sticking around. Also, the Bears have requested to interview Giants offensive coordinator Mike Kafka for their head coach job. We'll see what happens here with this. I think this might be one of those interviews where, you got to fill some sort of quota, and we'll see what happens there with that. I think the Bears are locked in on guys like maybe Brian Flores, Ron Rivera, maybe even a Ben Johnson or Cliff Kingsbury. Who knows? Because somebody who could come in and work with Caleb Williams like Cliff Kingsbury, that could go well for him. But yeah, we'll see what happens there. The next question is what happens with the coordinators, right? Do Mike Kafka and Shane Bowen stick around? Personally, I'd like to see them get a new OC and a new DC. The media spoke to Daboll today, and I think it's up to him now to clean up his coaching staff. He needs a better coaching staff, and also I think John Mara brought up to Brian Daboll that he doesn't think it's a good idea for him to call plays anymore. Daboll might have to give up play calling so that he could focus more on the team throughout the game rather than just calling plays. I think that's where his focus should be. It worked in 22. And yeah, we'll see what happens too, because the 4th year of head coaches historically for the Giants has gone over well. Tom Coughlin was on the hot seat after 3 years. They were 8-8 in 2006. However, they did make the playoffs, and they made the playoffs twice in 2 of his first 3 seasons. And they had a quarterback in place. Bill Parcells was also on the hot seat after going 10-6 in year 3 back in the mid-'80s. Difference there, they had a quarterback in place. So it is interesting to see here the similarities and differences, but year 4 has typically been a good year for Giants head coaches. I guess, folks, based on the schedule, you could hope somehow that the Giants win 7-8 games next year. I think that's their ceiling, and their floor is obviously 2 to 3 wins. Again, as of right now, but it's a long off season. There's still a lot of time. We have free agency. We have a draft to look forward to, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with the coaching staff first, because obviously that's what's going to be pieced together as far as the puzzle goes for the 2025 New York Giants over the next month or so, and then we'll get into free agency and start to preview the draft. But yeah, overall, I think the Giants aren't in the worst spot in the NFL heading into the 2025 offseason, but I definitely think it's an interesting decision to keep both head coach Brian Daboll and general manager Joe Schoen in 2025. But I can't say I'm surprised. I know how John Mara thinks. I wanted Daboll and Schoen both to stay up until about midway through the season when shit hit the fan. But I am not angry with this decision. I don't think Giants fans should be crying about it either. Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll have my full-fledged support heading into 2025. And I'll say it, I'm glad they're back. I'm glad the decision has been made. That's all I'm going to say. Whether I am fully on board with it or not, I'm a Giants fan. I want to see them both succeed. All right, folks, let me know what you think of this video. Make sure to check us out on all of our social media. What do you think about Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll? Did John Mara make the correct decision? Did he make the wrong decision? What would you have done differently? And yeah, let me know what you think about that Week 18 game against the Eagles and how that all panned out. Excited to talk about it. We'll have more videos up throughout the course of the next week or two talking about the state of the New York Football Giants. And without further ado, let's go Big Blue.